find that so hard to believe. We live in the richest country in the world. It's so easy to do. What is wrong? What people don't understand the money that they make and the value of it and how it can work for them.
My money.
I get money from you.
Money in the bank.
Young money.
It's a rich man's world.
You know, you've been one of the biggest influences in my life. I can say that personally, and you've helped an awful lot of people, other advisors, and the American public as a whole. This all started when you get into the life insurance business, and after playing professional baseball. How did this happen, Bob? I never knew who you were playing with, the Atlanta Braves. Who were you playing with? I figured out how that worked.
Well, I was going to NYU, School of Business and Finance, and I got drafted by the Minnesota Twins back in 1966.
Wow.
Back there. So I played 5 years, and I made the big leagues in 1968 with Atlanta. Got traded to the Atlanta Braves, and finally they traded me to the Mets in 1970. And I had a ruptured appendix in spring training. And that was like the end of my career. But from my education, you know, I've always wanted to be in finance, personal finance, either as an economist or something. So in 1970, when I quit baseball, I naturally just moved right into the financial services industry. And a friend of mine was a personal search manager, and he recommended that I go see Bill Ford, Ford Financial Group in New Jersey. And I said, well, what does Bill Ford do? And he said, well, they're a big insurance operation and they do a lot of estate planning and big insurance. I said, well, I don't want that. I don't want to do I don't want to be in investments. And so he said, well, look, go see Bill anyway, because you need the experience of a interview. So I said, okay, I go see Bill. So Bill wants to be bad because I played baseball, NYU graduate. He really wants to hire me. But I kept saying no, no, no. So he finally said, well, Bob, what do you want to do? So I said, well, I want to be in investments. So he said, I don't have an investment end of this business. Why don't you become vice president of investments for me? That's my first job out of baseball. So I went home and told my wife, look, I'm vice president of Bill Ford's and Associates. So he said, look, you teach my men, none of them know investments, teach them how to sell investments, and then you'll get an override and I'll pay you a salary. So that's how it all started. And then I found out that these insurance agents didn't like investments at all. So I was kind of stuck. So I decided that I was going to learn insurance and help them sell investments by knowing more about insurance. And that's how it all started. It was me finding out a way to sell insurance through investments, and I came up with all these ideas. So that's what started it in 1970.
You know, you came to understand that whole life insurance is one of the best financial products anyone can own, and today I know it to be true. But how did I'm just
it's little known though. You know, like people hear me say that, and I hear you say that, and it's so contrary to what they're being told by the investment community. That's true. But whole life insurance is an amazing product. It's multidimensional, whereas most other financial products, including stocks, bonds, mutual funds, IRA program, they're all one-dimensional. And so we have to explain to people really what the difference is between one-dimensional and three-dimensional.
Now, you and I were talking the other day, last week, about when did you come to the conclusion that what's going on today, Bob, with 401ks and IRAs and all this stuff was really kind of like use and abuse of other people's money? Did you intuitively, it took me a while to understand this, but did you know that from the get-go, or me being an investment guy?
I did. I did. I had this intuitiveness. My dad taught me some tremendous lessons, and he was just a blue collar worker. He was not a finance guy, but he taught me how money works when I was like
Yeah.
9 years old. He taught me to save. Every time I worked for him through some kind of a raking up the leaves or cleaning the house or doing something, he would pay me, but always bring my bank book. And in those days, they had the bank book where you stamped, if you recall, you stamped your number in the bank book, and the bank would then pay you interest. So here I was, 9 years old, looking at my father paying me money and the bank paying me money, and that was my first big lesson. Gee, money works, money, everybody keeps earning money. And so at 9 years old, I kind of got into that. Then when I went to NYU, of course, and took economics, I learned about the velocity money multiplier effect and all the great things that money can do. After all, there's only two ways you can make money, and that's people at work or money at work. I'm on the money at work side of it, but it's amazing how people work for money, and they work hard, and they work 40 to 50 years. They don't know how money works. So they get paid, but they don't know what to do with the money. They work so long and they waste it. And I think Social Security just said that only 1% of the people in America have $1 million at 65 for retirement. Only 1%. 99% not have. As a matter of fact, they even said later on in the article that 50% have less than $50,000. I find that so hard to believe. We live in the richest country in the world. It's so easy to do. What is wrong? What people don't understand the money that they make and the value of it and how it can work for them.
Yeah. Now, one of the things which I see as a major problem today, Bob, and I think we talked about it, is that I think in America today we can get something for nothing. And, thank you God, I've written 3 books. I've sold my books in 23 countries, blah, blah, blah. I'm pretty well known, not as well known as you, but it's been an awful lot of work and a lot of discipline and work over the years, And you got into pro baseball, and, but could you tell our viewers how long it took you to get good enough to be in the pros? Because you were telling me you started like when you were 4, something.
Yeah, I did start when I was 4. Someone handed me a baseball. No one showed me anything. And I threw it to somebody. They were like, wow. And they threw it again to me, and wow. And after a while, the 9-year-olds were letting me play with their team at 4 years old. And when you wow people, then you start liking it. But I threw as far as you can throw it. I threw naturally. No one taught me anything, but to rise to a big league level took years and years and years of obviously playing every day, loving it. You have to love what you do, and you also have to give it time. And you have to learn. You have to always ask questions. You have to always improve. You never stop improving. You're always looking for a better way, a better mousetrap, even in pitching. So that's true. And if you look at the golfers today, the golfing world, Tiger, he has a coach. He plays unbelievable golf, and he has a coach teaching him a new swing all the time. So people forget that you're always improving, not your job, not your life.
To be good because you're disciplined and you're over extended period of time. You can't get something for nothing. But we're told today we give them money, we put in an Apple stock or Google or something like that. You're gonna make all this money, and it just never happens that way, does it?
Because they panic when the stock goes down, and they sell, and they don't. They want to buy when everybody else is finally own it, and they buy too high. So they don't buy strategically. They buy with emotion, and you have to buy strategically. Money is like a game of chess.
Yeah.
It has many dimensions to it that people just don't understand. They listen to too many advisors, too much hype.
Yeah.
They want to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
And that's what. I mean, even we can look at mutual funds. Even they don't perform 100%. They can go down 30%, 40%, 50. These are the best people buying. They hire the 20 or 30 best people, and they still can't protect them. So how can the average consumer? But my system, belief system, is very scientific, very what I call multifunctional, macroeconomic, contains every aspect of your financial life. And it's a way of life. If you follow it, you're going to succeed in life. It's just, there's no way about it. It's very defensive and offensive at the same time. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud that I put at least 1 million people in it, and they're all doing fine today.
I got licensed with Leap back in '96, and this is the time I just sold a third-party administration firm and a pension administration firm I had, and I was trying to do something different. And I never forget when I was in Pittsburgh. Stan Casella was teaching the Leap class at the time, and you came up with the numbers, Bob, showing how all these financial products like 401ks and IRAs and 20-year term, they're all like programmed to fail. They couldn't work mathematically. How did you come up with the math on that? And that was kind of that's when you got my attention, because I was a math guy.
Well, when I was in the 1970s, I was listening to this thing about compound interest being the 8th wonder of the world. And they said Einstein had quoted that. So I did research. I looked and looked and looked, and I couldn't find anything about where Einstein said that compound interest was the 8th wonder of the world. I finally wrote the Einstein Institute, and they said, no, he didn't say that. He never did. He wasn't even interested in getting money and how it worked. So I said to myself, well, then why is it that the financial industry is trying to sell compound interest? So I researched it, and I knew how to do analysis and comparisons. And I found out that compound interest is one of the negative ways of what you're going to do with your money over the long haul. It may work 1 or 2 or 3 years, but if you're doing it for 40 years, you actually lose money by compounding it. And that was the first real function of my system, that compound interest isn't good. So therefore, there must be something better. And what happened was I then developed this velocity money multiplier to keep your money in motion, to keep it moving outside amongst products and intertwining and getting multiple rates of return rather than only one. But if a person were to go to their computer or calculator right now and just put in $5,000 and compound it at 10% for 50 years, age 18 to retirement, or 40 years, it doesn't matter how many years, the long term, because people are told to invest money in the long term. After taxes, after inflation, after fees, the money is gone. It's instead of being millions of dollars, I think I came up with $59,000. That's what. So and people don't realize that money that's compounding has a compound tax. Inflation is compounding against it. Fees are compounding within the account, and they don't see it because it's all happening outside and outside their account if they're not deducting inside the account. So that was the first thing. So what does an IRA or a 401k or any of those qualified plans do? They make it even worse because they compound money inside the account and you can't move it out. You can't. Like, one of the secrets of my system is that no matter where your money is, whether it's a mutual fund or money doesn't stay in the account, you take out the earnings and you move the earnings somewhere else. And we teach you now how to keep it moving. You lower your taxes that way, you lower your fees that way, and you get multiple rates of return, you eliminate costs. So the same amount of money without compounding can be worth 3 times or 4 times as much, given the same variables, exactly the same variables, without any risk, any same investment, same everything. Compounding is not a good thing, and yet that's what everyone is doing. They're letting their money being confiscated pretty much by what I call the big three: corporations, government, and financial institutions.
I'm a numbers guy. I was like, how did you ever figure out like the lost opportunity costs and the fees? Because of it. And would you learn at NYU or whatever? I was.
We were taught modeling. In other words, for every action, there's a reaction, and you have to follow the money. So once someone does one thing, you've got to follow what is happening from it. And so it wasn't hard for me to develop the model of how money is spent. So if people are compounding and they're paying their tax on it outside the account, actually from withholdings, they don't count that money and they don't compound that cost that the IRS has. That money is a cost. Even though their account is growing, they don't see the negativity of what is occurring. So as they begin to lose more and more money paying for compounding, eventually a planned obsolescence or technology change, something in the future is going to make them want to withdraw the money for other costs, whether it be a marriage, a child's education, whatever it might be. Something's going to happen, new roof. So they wind up losing their principal and they wind up losing all their costs. So they wind up with nothing.
So, but now more importantly, how did you have that model, the protection, savings, and growth model? And today I've been practicing leap for around like 20 years. I still use the old pen and paper model, Bob. I'll never do get the software because I just intuitively know you're right. But the model is beautiful because we do a lot of work with like pilots. And I think of like the Psng model, the protection, savings, and growth model. It's almost like a checklist. And like pilots, like, because there's really kind of a logical order to that. How did you come up with the Psng model?
I realized when I looked at personal finance that we needed not a chessboard, but a game board to run our lives, because money is just the same strategically.
Yeah.
And so what's missing in the entire financial community is a game board.
Yeah.
People are making decisions about their lives without weights and measures, without comparisons, without understanding strategy. They're just listening to people talk. And for every voice you hear on one side, you'll hear 5,000 voices on the other. So who knows what's going on? So I figured, well, we need a game board. We need a way to measure any financial decision that one has to make, anything, and measure it and see how it is structured, whether it's efficient, whether it's effective, and compare it to other moves and whatever is best. And that's what makes a chess player. The chess player is dealing with the same pieces as everybody else. We all deal the same financial products. We all have the same products. There's no new product out there that's going to make us rich. So it has to be in the strategic positioning versus the product. And people are buying product versus positioning. So I said, well, I need a system to position the products. And that's how I developed protection, which was all the various insurance products, wills, trusts, insurance, things like that, savings products, which were the CDs, money markets, tax deferred annuities, IRAs, checking accounts, everything. So, and then the investment products. So we call it growth. So protection, savings, and growth are the three different realms where money has to fit. You have to be in one of those components. And so all I had to do was design the component for the measurement. So whenever, so if you had a protection, an insurance decision to make, it would fall into the protection component, and then it would be massaged throughout that unit as to whether what it was going to do, how it was going to work, what it was going to cost, what the results would be, and then compare that to other decisions.
Now, you came up with this, I don't know, were you an agent still when you came up with this? And then, when did you decide to bring this out to the public, roll it out to the public?
1983. So it was 13 years in the making. But it was 1983 that I first went to, well, I had my own business and I was making so much money and my clients were making money and you know, my reputation was out there. I was in the Hall of Fame for the financial industry. And so a company called me and wanted to know what I was doing. And I just went to them and I visited. I said, okay, I'm not using your systems. I'm using my own system. And they said, can we see it? So I said, sure. And well, they loved it. I was sitting around a boardroom and must have been about 12 executives there. And they all were wowed. They all went, oh my God, what have we been missing? So they decided that they wanted to license my system and use it for their agents in the country. And from there on, it was 23 different financial institutions that I visited and impressed so much that they purchased it. And I was believe me, I had every actuary, every mathematician, every which way of executives in home offices trying to beat the system. Still today, it's been around after what, 83 till today, it's still going, and it's still one of the few systems, as you know, systems are always coming and going. Mine is still out there and still being used effectively.
But even so, Mel, you're bringing these guys a lot of business too, which is that you're kind of like, I don't know, Jesus walking on the water, bringing them all this premium. But a lot of the big companies, actually, one of them, I was actually on their board of one of their endowments. Not everyone embraced Bob Castiglione. They said, you're crazy. What?
I took that as a compliment. Because I knew they were wrong. Yeah, I knew because I had the facts and I had the data and I had the analysis and I had real proof. I mean, I went to Wharton School. I took privately on my own, went to the Wharton School, which is, and I talked to the top actuary in the department there, who I said, look, here's my system, analyze it, look at it, tell me if it's right. And he said, I'm certifying it's right, and signed. You know, if an actuary signs something at the bottom,
Yeah.
That's a pretty serious matter. I knew my numbers were all correct. I knew the system was right. So when they said I'm crazy, it really reflected that they were crazy.
But there was also this tectonic shift, Bob, away from, I mean, when I first started in financial planning, I hate to say it, 30, 35 years ago, we were learned to really to protect people, the basics, the disability, the human life value, and then the wills and trusts and the whole thing like that. But now the country, other than systems like LEAP, it's drifted so far off track. I mean, it's just the fundamentals have been thrown out the window.
I think people have to find their way. Financial institutions and the government and the big corporations are so powerful. They spend billions and billions of dollars every year just advertising, convincing the public to do this versus that. And the public, through the media and through social media, makes decisions in 7 seconds. That's what they're used to now. They don't analyze anymore. They want to get the information from someone else instead of studying on their own and seeing what's best for themselves. So that's what we're going through right now. It's easy to convince somebody to do something wrong.
What kept you going, Bob? What was your faith? It was your family? I mean, because obviously you had a lot of internal fortitude and you had a tremendous amount of resilience. Where did that come from?
You know, when they give you the ball on the mound, it's a pitch, you can't hide. I got the ball in my hands and I got to throw it right into the catcher's mitt. And the guy's trying to hit a home run and he's trying to knock it out of the park or whatever. So in baseball, you learn that you had to bear down and you didn't hide, and you had to really do the job. And if you didn't do the job, you weren't going to be around. But I did have 20, 30, 40,000 agents sign on to my system around the country. And we met annually,
Yeah, wonderful. You know,
I'm getting a
the
lot of praise. I'm getting a lot of praise, and when you're getting a lot of praise, it's the food that you need to keep going, just not the money. You need a pat on the back. You need to know that you're influencing people too. So it's really the people to seek clients. As you know, I used to bring the public to my meetings and put them on stage and show them the system right on stage, the public, and they just, oh my God, this is the best thing is this sliced bread.
you're in your golden years. Okay, you're playing golf. You're playing much golf. How much you playing? How much golf are you playing, Bob?
2 days a week, I used to be a 4 handicap way back when I was young out of baseball. I'm about a 12, which still isn't too bad, but at 76 years old, I've shot my age a couple of times. Uh, I even had a double eagle, which is called an albatross, which is I hit a ball 3 wood into the hole on the par 5. So these are the things that you remember.
What advice would you give to the next generation? I mean, I have like I have my daughter who's be editing this video for us, and what would you be telling young people to read, or what would you give them as advice? Because it's really changed radically since even I started in this business and you started in this business, and the misinformation, Bob, and the miscommunication and the propaganda, it's horrific now. Any suggestions you would make to the younger people, the next generation?
I would say that we live in a country that is called caveat emptor, from the old Latin. Caveat
Yeah,
buyer
you.
beware. Okay. And I'll always tell them that buyer beware. You really are your own steward, and that's the way it's going to be. No one else cares quite about you than you do. So you really have to buckle down, research everything yourself. Be sure. Don't make a decision based upon other people because they don't care too much, even though they sound good and sell good and everything else, as you well know through your books. You have to bear down. And just like I said, if somebody's going to give you the ball, you have to do it. You're not going to rely on anybody else. You can't rely on the government. You can't rely on your financial planner. You can't rely upon the big corporation for your job. You have to always buckle down and do it yourself. So that is my biggest thing. Freedom is unbelievable. Freedom. I just hope we never lose freedom. I cringe every time I hear about big government, big government, big government, because the big government is just people doing it for themselves. They're not really caring about other people, and that's what happens in communism and socialism. I don't want to be political, but the proof is there.
You know, Bob, too, and I have some friends who are immigrants from they're Cuban immigrants and so forth, and they're just so happy to be in this. They think America is wonderful. I mean, this is great, and but people just don't really understand how good we have it. I mean, so I think we have to fight even harder to keep what we have.
My immigrant friends, they're the ones who appreciate America sometimes more than the other. They always say, people don't know what they have until you go somewhere else.
And let me ask you a question, Bob. And I stole this from my first book. I had a chapter, Never Met a Man Who Made His Millions in Mutual Funds. And I kind of lifted that phrase from you as a chapter from my own book. Have you ever met anyone who made all their millions and millions of dollars in mutual funds?
Who's to sell them? who own them and sell them. Yeah.
Let me ask you: do you still have does the Sleep still have the book, the Economics of Life Insurance, to Solomon Huebner? That's still a great book, and it's just most Americans should be reading this. It's more important today than it was. I don't know when he wrote it, 50, 60, 70 years ago.
No, he wrote it way back in the 30s. So it's years. And I restored that book. It was out of print, and I was responsible for having it reprinted and put back into the industry. And actually, I copyrighted it for a while. I got the permission of his son to do that. But I believe so much in the first part of that book that the human life value, we are all worth more than we think we're worth. We're worth a whole lot of money to people, whether it's our own family, to our business. And it bothers me when people think that they are, oh, they're not important. A dishwasher's important.
Yeah.
He's part of the whole economy. Somebody's got to do that job, and he's part of the whole. We're all valuable, and we all deserve a better ending than we're getting. And one of my big disappointments in life has been to watch the Social Security Administration take money from people at the end. When a person, let's say a person dies at age 68, him and his wife, 68, 69, no money gets passed on to the children. It stops there. And yet they put in so much money, and employers put in so much money, perhaps millions of dollars. And stop and think of if everyone could own that money and have it, what that would do for everyone's vision of their job and the importance of themselves and how they created that wealth instead of stealing it from them. So that is one of the things I'm still writing people about and still trying to get just a tiny bit of money put away for almost every employee so that they can retire with $1 million. I mean, everybody would be happy. Everybody would be appreciative of their job. And as long as they couldn't touch it and they can't get it, it'll be there for them. So I'm working on it.
You gotta keep, I don't think you can fully retire, Bob. I read the Bible every day. I don't see any place in the Bible where it talks about retirement plans, to be honest with you. I think we got to continue to be of service. That's just my take. But one of the things which troubles me, and this is just my opinion, I told you I've been working on a book on private equity and how they're getting into the life insurance business.
Right.
And you and I, I tell people I'm a snob. I like mutual companies because of just the corporate structure and so forth. But what do you think about Wall Street getting into the life insurance business? To me, I'm petrified because if you study history, J.P. Morgan, erupted in the largest economic scandal in 1908. This is why New York insurance laws are so strong, because J.P. Morgan was essentially using the life insurance reserves to buy and sell railways. Well, now Apollo and Goldman and Blackstone and Guggenheim and KKR just announced last week they're buying these life insurance companies.
Not the first time. Universal Life.
Yeah.
Introduced to life insurance companies by E.F. Hutton. I think it was E.F. Hutton.
Yeah.
But so it's not the first time, and many companies went stock versus mutual from that. Life insurance companies, especially mutual companies, are valuable assets.
They're great assets.
They come through thick and thin through recessions and depressions. Most companies who are mutual companies, I think you go back to the late 1800s and they've still been around, and they've never failed to pay a dividend throughout all the recessions and depressions that we've had. So the concept of a big reserve, having a big cash fund that nobody can touch, which they all have, is, you've got to look at me as if I was an investment guy and I'm looking at this big cash cow over there, I'm going to figure out a way that, I want to get my hands on that, So that's what's happening. There's no money around. It's all been spent. It's all in debt. And these are the only institutions, I think, that have this kind of cash laying around. Everybody else is leveraged.
Well, as I go forward, Bob, I'll share my research with you on it, because it's something I've showed my son, and other people have said I have to finish this, and I will. Bob, I can't thank you enough for being part of this interview today. You've helped me, and you've helped so many Americans, and you're a good guy, and you're still playing golf. And
We counted on America to be passive. He counted wrong.